What happens when a king discovers his mate only after throwing her away? For Alara Winters, life meant shadows. Born an Omega in the Silver Moon Pack, she'd learned early that survival meant silence, that safety meant smallness. The weakest link in the werewolf hierarchy, she served at ceremonies, cleaned the pack house, and kept her eyes down when alphas passed. But she'd always felt something more stirring beneath her skin, a whisper in her bones that insisted she was meant for something beyond scrubbing floors and bearing the weight of other wolves' contempt. She ignored it. She had to. But when Alpha King Darius Blackthorn chose his Luna at the Harvest Moon ceremony, and it wasn't her, when he looked directly through her as if she were made of smoke, then announced his choice of another before the entire pack, something inside her shattered. The bond she'd felt pulling toward him for months snapped like a frozen branch, and the pain drove her to her knees before 300 witnesses. And what happens next? No one was prepared for. Not even the 10 ancient guardians who'd been searching for her across 5 centuries. The ceremony had been perfect. That's what everyone would remember later. The perfection of it all before everything fell apart. Lanterns swayed from ancient oaks, casting golden light across the ceremonial grounds. The scent of roasted venison and honey wine hung thick in the autumn air, mixing with the musk of hundreds of wolves gathered to witness their Alpha King choose his mate. Pack members stood in careful ranks, alphas at the front, their shoulders broad and proud, betas filling the middle rows, and omegas like Alara pressed against the back, barely visible in the torchlight. Alara's hands trembled as she held a ceremonial wine pitcher, stationed near the dais where Alpha King Darius would make his announcement. She shouldn't have been this close. Omegas weren't usually allowed within 20 feet of the Alpha King, but they'd needed extra servers tonight, and she'd been chosen because she was quiet, forgettable. Small mercies. She'd felt it for 3 months now, the pull toward Darius Blackthorn. The way her wolf stirred whenever he entered a room, the way lavender and morning dew seemed to pour from her skin when he was near, as if her body was calling to his. She'd tried to ignore it, tried to convince herself it was impossible. Alpha Kings didn't mate with Omegas. The hierarchy was sacred, ordained by the moon goddess herself. But the bond didn't lie. Darius stood on the dais now, magnificent in his authority. 6'4" of pure, dominant power, with black hair that caught silver in the moonlight and eyes like molten gold. His scent, forest and embers, ozone before a storm, cold steel, washed over the crowd, and wolves unconsciously lowered their heads in submission. He wore traditional ceremonial leathers marked with the crown sigil, and when he moved, it was with the lethal grace of a born predator. "My pack," his voice carried without effort, deep and commanding. "Tonight, I claim my Luna." Alara's heart hammered against her ribs. Her wolf pressed forward, eager, hopeful despite everything she'd told it. Please, she thought desperately, please let it be real. The moon goddess has blessed our pack with strength and prosperity. As your Alpha King, I've searched for a mate worthy to stand beside me, a Luna who embodies power, grace, and the noble blood of our finest families. Noble blood. The words hit like a slap. Alara's parents were laborers, her bloodline common as dirt. She felt her hope beginning to crack. Lyanna Silvercrest. The name echoed across the ceremonial grounds. A beautiful woman stepped forward from the Alpha ranks, tall, willowy, with silver blonde hair and ice blue eyes. Her scent, cinnamon and iron, spoke of ambition and barely leashed violence. She moved like liquid moonlight, her smile sharp and triumphant as she ascended the dais. "You will be my Luna," Darius continued, reaching for Lyanna's hand. "You will rule beside me, bear my heirs, and the bond snapped. Alara felt it sever. The invisible thread that had been pulling her toward Darius for months suddenly torn apart with such force that she gasped aloud. Pain exploded through her chest, white-hot and devastating, as if her ribs were being pried apart. She staggered, the wine pitcher slipping from her hands and shattering against stone. The crash echoed like thunder. Every eye turned toward her. 300 wolves stared as Alara dropped to her knees, clutching her chest, tears streaming down her face as the rejection burned through her like wildfire. She could feel it. The mate bond she'd barely understood, dying inside her. Could feel her wolf howling in anguish, clawing at her insides, demanding to know why their mate was choosing another. Darius's eyes widened. For just a moment, recognition flickered across his face. His nostrils flared, catching her scent. Lavender and morning dew now mixed with the bitter salt of devastation. And something in his expression shifted. Confusion. Disbelief. Understanding. No, he breathed, but Alara barely heard it over the roaring in her ears. Lyanna's smile turned venomous. An Omega, she spat, her voice dripping with disdain. You felt a pull toward an Omega? I didn't. Darius started, but stopped. The ceremony laws were absolute. Once Aluna was named before the pack, the choice was sealed. To reverse it would mean chaos, would undermine his authority completely. Alara could see the calculation in his eyes, could see the exact moment he decided his throne mattered more than some impossible bond, with a wolf he'd never even noticed before. Remove her, he said quietly. Then, louder, to the guards. Remove her from the ceremony grounds. Immediately! 2 beta guards hauled Alara to her feet. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe past the pain shredding her from the inside. Her wolf was dying. She could feel it retreating, whimpering, broken. Darius, please. The words tore from her throat without permission. His jaw clenched. You will address me as Alpha King. His voice was ice. And you are banished from the Silver Moon Pack. You have until dawn to cross our borders. If you're found within our territory after sunrise, you will be executed as a rogue. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. Banishment was a death sentence for an Omega. Without a pack, without protection, she'd be easy prey for rogues or hostile packs. The wilderness was brutal this time of year, and winter was coming fast. Alara's parents pushed through the crowd. Her father, a groundskeeper, and her mother, a pack house cook. But when Alara reached for them, desperate for any comfort, her mother stepped back. We can't, her mother whispered, and Alara heard real fear in her voice. Something else, too. Something like guilt. We can't help you, Alara. I'm sorry. This is how it had to be. What? Alara's voice cracked, but the guards were already dragging her away, and her parents vanished into the crowd without another word. They threw her past the border markers just before midnight. Alara hit the frozen ground hard enough to taste blood. The ceremonial dress they'd made her wear, a simple gray shift that marked her as a servant, was already soaked through from the sleet that had started falling. She had no coat, no supplies. Nothing but the clothes on her back and a shattered bond burning in her chest. She was 22 years old, and she was going to die tonight. The storm came down like divine punishment. Alara stumbled through the forest, her bare feet torn and bleeding, her body shaking so violently she could barely stand. The bond severing had left her weak, feverish. She could feel her wolf's consciousness fading, retreating into some dark corner of her mind where Alara couldn't reach it. Without her wolf, she was just human flesh in a forest full of predators. This is it, she thought, as she collapsed against a crumbling stone wall. Through the sleet, she could just make out the shape of an abandoned barn, its roof half caved, but it was shelter. Barely. She crawled inside and curled into the driest corner she could find, wrapping her arms around herself. Her teeth chattered so hard she bit her tongue. Blood and lavender. Her scent was changing, fading, as if her body knew it was dying and had stopped bothering to maintain the pretense of life. "I'm sorry," she whispered to her wolf, to the moon goddess, to no one. "I'm so sorry." Her eyes drifted closed. Time became strange. She was aware of the cold receding, of her heartbeat slowing to something distant and dreamlike. Was this what death felt like? Peaceful, almost, like falling asleep after years of exhaustion. But then, warmth. Ilara's eyes fluttered open, and she saw them. Wolves. Massive wolves, circling her in the darkness. Her first instinct was terror. Rogues had found her. She was about to be torn apart. But then she noticed they weren't attacking. They were surrounding her, pressing close. She could feel their body heat radiating toward her, their breath misting in the frozen air. She counted them, her fever-addled mind insisting on the task. 1. A massive silver wolf with scars across its muzzle positioned at her head. 2. A russet-colored wolf, nearly as large, flanking her left side. 3. A white wolf with amber eyes pressing against her back. 4. 5. 6. They kept coming, forming a protective circle around her. 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 wolves, each larger than any alpha she'd ever seen, had arranged themselves around her like ancient standing stones. They radiated heat and power, and slowly, impossibly, Ilara felt her body temperature rising, felt her heartbeat strengthening. They were keeping her alive. "Why?" she managed to whisper. The silver wolf at her head shifted. One moment, wolf. The next, a man. He was perhaps 40, with silver-streaked dark hair and a face carved by time and battle. Scars ran down the left side of his neck, and his eyes, storm gray and ancient, held a weight that made Ilara's breath catch. His scent hit her like a wall. Aged oak and winter snow, pine forests and incoming storms, layered with something primal and fierce. Power radiated from him in waves that made her want to bare her throat in submission. But there was gentleness there, too, a careful control. "Because we've been waiting for you," he said, his voice rough as gravel and warm as summer stone. "For 500 years, we've been waiting." His name was Thorn. He told her this as he lifted her in his arms. She was too weak to walk, and carried her deeper into the forest, his pack following silently behind. Not his pack, Ilara learned, his guard. They brought her to a hidden valley she'd never known existed, despite living near these woods her entire life. A warm spring bubbled up from the ground, and ancient trees formed a natural shelter. Someone, she never saw who, had already laid out furs and started a fire. The scent of healing herbs filled the air. Thorn set her down gently near the fire's warmth. The other 9 wolves had shifted now, revealing themselves as men and women of varying ages, all bearing the same aura of timeless power. They moved around her with practiced efficiency, bringing her warm broth, wrapping her in furs, tending to her torn feet. "You're in shock," Thorn said, crouching beside her. "The bond severing, the exposure. You should be dead. You would be if you were any other wolf." "I don't understand." Ilara's voice was barely a whisper. "Who are you?" "Why were you waiting for me?" "We are the Unchained," Thorn said, and the title carried weight, like he was speaking something sacred. "Elite guards bound by prophecy to protect the matriarch when she rises. We've searched for you across centuries, watching bloodlines, following the signs. And 3 months ago, when the moon goddess finally sang your location in our dreams, we came to this territory and waited." "Matriarch?" Ilara shook her head. I'm an Omega. I'm nothing. You are everything." A woman stepped forward. The white wolf, Ilara realized. She had pale hair and amber eyes, and her scent was warm, honey, and summer rain. "My name is Sage. I'm a healer, and I can sense what was done to you, Ilara. Your power isn't absent. It's bound." Bound? Suppressed by magic. Sage knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on Ilara's forehead. "Someone locked your wolf away when you were very young, buried your power so deep you could never access it. That's why you presented as an Omega when you should have been." She stopped, exchanged a glance with Thorn. "When she should have been what?" Ilara demanded, finding strength in her desperation to understand. "The most powerful wolf alive," Thorn said simply. "The prophecy speaks of a wolf, born marked by the moon goddess herself, whose power would be so great that others would fear it, try to suppress it. It says, 'When the frost moon rises and the false king chooses wrong, the matriarch will wake. She will be storm and mercy, fury and grace. She will come when the pack needs her most, though they cast her out in fear.'" "My parents," Ilara breathed, pieces clicking into place. Her mother's guilty face. This is how it had to be. "They did this to me." Sage nodded gravely. "When you were an infant. We don't know why yet, but yes. They bound your wolf, suppressed your power, made you appear weak." Rage flooded through Ilara, hot and fierce, but beneath it something else stirred. That whisper she'd always felt. That insistence that she was meant for more. It was louder now, stronger. "The rejection," she whispered. "When Darius rejected the bond, it shattered the binding." Thorn's smile was fierce, proud. "Magic requires belief to hold. When the Alpha King rejected you as unworthy, when the pack cast you out, when you accepted your own death, all of that broke the spell that insisted you were powerless. Your wolf is waking up, Ilara, and she is magnificent." As if responding to his words, Ilara felt it, a presence in her mind that hadn't been there before. Ancient, powerful, furious. Finally, a voice growled inside her head, feminine and wild. "Finally, I can speak to you," Ilara gasped. "I can hear her, my wolf, I can actually hear her." "I am not just your wolf," the voice corrected, amused despite her anger. "I am you, the part they stole, the part they feared. And now we're going to show them exactly what they tried to destroy." "Let her out," Thorn urged gently. "Let her shift. She's been caged for 22 years. She needs to run." Fear spiked through Ilara. "I've never shifted before. Not once, or I don't know how." "She knows." Sage squeezed her hand. "Trust her. Trust yourself." Ilara closed her eyes, reaching for that presence in her mind. "Help me," she thought. "Always," her wolf answered. The shift began. But it wasn't like the shifts Ilara had seen before. The violent crack of bones, the screams of pain. This was different. This was like her body remembered something it had forgotten. Like every cell was sighing in relief as it finally returned to its true form. Her bones didn't break. They flowed, lengthening and reshaping with liquid grace. Fur erupted across her skin, not the gray or brown of common wolves, but pure silver white, each strand shimmering with an inner light. She felt her senses exploding outward, suddenly able to hear a rabbit's heartbeat 300 yards away, to smell the individual scents of all 10 unchained and distinguish each one, to taste the moisture in the air and know a storm was coming in 3 hours. But it was the size that made the unchained step back in awe. Ilara kept growing, and growing, until she stood easily as tall as Thorn at the shoulder, larger than any alpha she'd ever seen, larger than the Unchained themselves in their wolf forms. Power rolled off her in waves, visible as silver light that made the air shimmer. When she turned her head, she caught her reflection in the spring's still surface. Her eyes glowed like full moons, white silver with no pupil, pure lunar light staring back at her. Ancient symbols shimmered across her fur, there and gone again, sacred marks of the moon goddess herself. Oh, Alara thought, stunned. Oh, this is what I was supposed to be. She threw her head back and howled. The sound shattered across the valley, primal and powerful, carrying for miles. It wasn't a cry of pain or grief. It was a declaration, an announcement. Every wolf within 50 miles would hear it and know. Something had changed. Something immense had awakened. The Unchained all dropped to their knees, heads bowed in submission. "She is the matriarch," Thorn said, his voice thick with emotion. "She is the one we've waited for. She is risen." The days turned to weeks. Thorn and the Unchained taught Alara everything they knew: how to control her shifting, how to channel her power, how to lead. But she discovered abilities even they hadn't expected. She could feel other wolves' emotions like flavors on her tongue. Fear tasted like copper and smoke. Joy was honey and sunlight. Anger came as burnt cinnamon. She could sense injuries and heal them with a touch, her power flowing into damaged tissue and knitting it whole. And when she spoke in her alpha voice, her matriarch voice, every wolf within earshot had no choice but to obey, their bodies responding before their minds could resist. "You're empathic," Sage explained, after Alara had sensed and healed a sprained ankle on one of the guard. "True empathy is rarer than diamonds among our kind. It means you don't just command through dominance, you lead through understanding." But beyond the power, beyond the training, Alara found something she'd never had before: family. The Unchained, her 10 elite guards, each had their own story, their own personality. There was Sage, the healer, gentle but fierce when protecting others. Cade, the russet wolf who made terrible jokes and could track a scent across bare stone. Frost, the white-haired woman who barely spoke, but whose loyalty was absolute. Marcus, who'd been a scholar before taking the oath and taught Alara about pack law and ancient history. And Thorn. Always Thorn. He trained her personally in combat. Teaching her that size meant nothing without skill. They sparred daily, and though he always won, 500 years of experience weren't overcome in weeks. The gap narrowed each time. He told her stories around the fire at night, tales of the old packs, of the first matriarch who'd ruled 2,000 years ago before the bloodline was lost. "You remind me of her," he said one night, his gray eyes reflecting firelight. "Not just the power, the heart. She believed in justice tempered with mercy, in earning loyalty rather than demanding it. She was." He paused, a rare smile crossing his scarred face. "She was extraordinary." "So were you loyal to her too?" Alara asked. "I was a pup when she died, but I felt the pack's grief when we lost her, felt the way the world became, less without her light in it. The Unchained swore we'd find and protect the next matriarch, no matter how long it took. Some of us died over the centuries. Some went mad with the waiting, but 10 of us endured. And now," he reached out, tucking a strand of silver hair behind her ear. "Now, the wait is over." The intimacy of the gesture made Alara's breath catch. She'd felt the bond growing between them, not the forced, mystical bond she'd felt with Darius, but something chosen, something real. The way Thorn looked at her wasn't about destiny or prophecy. It was about her, who she was, who she was becoming. "Thorn," she whispered. "I'm not. I don't know if I can be what everyone needs me to be. You already are. He cupped her face in his scarred hands. You're brilliant and brave and kind, despite every reason to be cruel. You question your own power, which means you'll never abuse it. And you make terrible tea, which means you're still beautifully, perfectly human, beneath all that goddess-marked glory. Elara laughed despite herself. I do make terrible tea. The worst. He leaned closer, his scent wrapping around her. Oak and snow and storms, steady and strong. May I kiss you, matriarch? She closed the distance herself, pressing her lips to his, and felt something click into place in her chest. Not the painful snap of a broken bond, but something warm and right. Chosen. True. When they pulled apart, all 10 Unchained were pretending very hard not to notice. Though Sage's smile was unmistakable. That night, Elara slept without nightmares, for the first time since the ceremony. The scout found her on a Tuesday morning. Elara was practicing her healing abilities on a wounded deer. Cade had found when she caught an unfamiliar scent on the wind. Sweat and fear, leather and steel. Silver Moon Pack. She recognized the scent profile instantly, would never forget it. Someone's watching us, she said quietly. The Unchained reacted instantly, fanning out in defensive positions. Thorn appeared at her shoulder, already half-shifted, his eyes scanning the trees. Show yourself, Elara called, letting her power infuse her voice. Not a request, a command. A young beta male stumbled from behind an oak, terror plain on his face. He couldn't have been more than 18. Please, I was just scouting the border. I didn't mean to trespass. I'll go, I swear. Just please don't. He stopped, his eyes widening as he took in Elara's appearance. She'd changed over the past weeks. Her silver-white hair had grown longer, shinier. Her eyes held lunar light even in human form. She radiated authority now, wore it like a crown. She was unrecognizable from the small, broken Omega they'd cast out. Elara? The scout breathed her name like a prayer or a curse. But they said you died. Alpha King Darius said you'd never survive the winter alone. He was almost right. Elara kept her voice steady. But I wasn't alone, was I? Tell me, Scout, what's your name? J. Joel. Joel. Do you think it's right, what your Alpha King did? Rejecting his true mate because she wasn't noble enough? Casting her out to die because she was inconvenient? Joel's throat worked. I'm just a beta. I don't question the Alpha. Maybe you should. Elara took a step forward, and Joel instinctively stepped back. Go back to your pack, Joel. Tell Alpha King Darius that the Omega he threw away isn't dead. Tell him the matriarch has risen. And tell him, she smiled, cold and sharp. Tell him she's coming. Joel ran like the forest itself was chasing him. They'll mobilize, Thorn said grimly. Bring a war party. I know. Elara's hands were steady despite the fear curling in her stomach. Let them come. It's time. They came at dawn. 25 wolves poured into the valley, led by Darius himself. Behind him, Lyanna stalked in her wolf form, a large, silver-blonde wolf with ice-blue eyes, beautiful and deadly. The pack spread out in attack formation, surrounding the spring, where Elara stood waiting. The Unchained flanked her on both sides, human still, but ready to shift in an instant. Darius shifted human as he approached, and Elara was struck by how diminished he seemed. His scent still spoke of power, forest and embers, ozone and steel. But compared to Thorn's ancient oak and storm, it seemed almost theatrical, performed rather than innate. Elara, his golden eyes were hard. You were banished. This is Silver Moon territory. No. Elara's voice rang clear across the valley. This is unclaimed territory, Alpha King. Check your maps. This valley has never belonged to any pack, which means you brought your war party onto neutral ground. That's a violation of the Accords. Darius's jaw clenched. You've been causing trouble, Omega? Spreading lies about being your true mate? Alara interrupted. Was that a lie? When the bond snapped between us, when I felt it sever, was that my imagination? Silence. The gathered wolves shifted uncomfortably. You made a mistake, Darius. Alara took a step forward. You didn't just reject a mate. You rejected the moon goddess's choice, and you're about to learn what that costs. Lyanna shifted human, her beauty stark in the morning light. You pathetic little Omega. You think because you found some rogue wolves to protect you, you're suddenly important? You're nothing. You always were, and you always will be. Darius chose me, a real alpha, a worthy Luna, not some weak, powerless Lyanna, Alara said quietly. Shut up! The alpha voice hit like a physical blow. Lyanna's mouth snapped shut mid-word, her body going rigid as the command seized her. Her eyes widened in shock and rage, but she couldn't speak, couldn't move beyond her trembling fury. The scent of fear washed over the gathered wolves. They'd just watched an Omega command, an alpha into silence with a single word. You want to challenge me? Alara asked Lyanna, releasing the command enough for her to shift. Then challenge me. Just you and me. No guards, no pack. Just us. Lyanna snarled and shifted immediately, her wolf leaping forward in a blur of silver-blonde fur and bared fangs. Alara shifted to meet her. The fight lasted 12 seconds. Lyanna was fast, vicious, trained in combat since birth. But Alara was something else entirely. She moved like water and struck like lightning, her massive silver-white form making Lyanna look like a cub by comparison. She caught Lyanna mid-leap, using the she-wolf's own momentum to slam her into the ground with devastating force. Before Lyanna could recover, Alara's jaws were around her throat, not biting, not yet, but the threat was unmistakable. Submit, Alara's wolf growled into Lyanna's mind, a trick Sage had taught her. Submit or die. Lyanna went limp, exposing her throat fully. The pack watched in stunned silence as their chosen Luna surrendered completely to the Omega they'd cast out. Alara released her and shifted back to human. Lyanna Silvercrest, for your cruelty and ambition, for your role in casting out the true mate of your alpha, you are stripped of your rank. You will serve the lowest Omega in whatever pack accepts you as penance, and you will bear this mark as a reminder of your shame. She pressed her hand to Lyanna's wolf forehead, and lunar light flared. When it faded, a silver mark remained, a broken crown, visible proof of her disgrace. Lyanna shifted human, tears streaming down her face, and crawled away. Alara turned to face the rest of the pack. Now, shall we discuss why you really came here? That's when the Unchained shifted. 10 wolves, but not wolves. Dire wolves, creatures of legend, twice the size of any alpha, with coats that shimmered with elemental power. Sage's white fur glowed with healing light. Cade's russet coat moved like living flame. Frost's wolf seemed carved from ice itself. And Thorn. Oh, Thorn was glorious. His silver-gray wolf towered over even Alara in her matriarch form, ancient and powerful, his storm-gray eyes holding the weight of centuries. His scent rolled over the valley like an incoming hurricane, and the silver moon wolves whimpered and flattened to the ground in instinctive submission. These weren't guards. They were legends, given flesh, the Unchained, the elite warriors bound by prophecy to serve the matriarch. Darius fell to his knees. Mercy, he whispered, his dominance completely shattered. Please. I didn't know. I didn't understand what you were. You didn't care, Alara corrected. She walked toward him, barefoot in her human form, unafraid. You felt the bond, Darius. You knew I was your mate. But I wasn't convenient, so you rejected me and left me to die. Tell me, why should I show you mercy when you showed me none? His voice cracked. I was a fool. I was blinded by tradition, by what I thought a Luna should be. I felt the bond, but I ignored it because you were an Omega, and I thought power mattered more than destiny. I was wrong. I know that now. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to— I don't want your repentance, Darius. Ilara crouched before him, forcing him to meet her glowing eyes. I want justice. Not just for me, but for every Omega who's been treated as lesser. For every wolf who's suffered under a hierarchy that values birthright over character. She stood, addressing the entire pack. Hear me now. I am Ilara Winters, called the Matriarch. This valley and all the unclaimed territories surrounding it are now mine. Any wolf, Alpha, Beta, or Omega, who seeks refuge from unjust treatment may come to me. I will build a pack based on merit and loyalty, not blood and dominance. And any pack that harms their weakest members will answer to me and the Unchained. A wave of power washed over the gathered wolves, her declaration settling into their bones like a brand. This wasn't a challenge. It was a new law, spoken by one who had the strength to enforce it. As for you, Alpha King Darius Blackthorn, Ilara's voice hardened. You will return to your pack and tell them what happened here. You will reform your laws to protect Omegas. You will dismantle the worst traditions that allow the strong to abuse the weak. And every full moon, you will come to this valley and report your progress to me. Fail, and I will take your pack from you and scatter it to the winds. Do you understand? Yes, Matriarch. His head bowed. I understand. Go. She dismissed him with a gesture. All of you, and send my parents to me. Alone. The pack fled. Only Darius hesitated, looking back once with something like regret etched across his face. Then he too was gone. And Ilara was left with her Unchained and the weight of what she'd just done. Thorn shifted human and wrapped a cloak around her shoulders. You were magnificent, he murmured. I was terrifying, she corrected, but she was shaking now, adrenaline fading. Did I do the right thing? You did the necessary thing. He pulled her close. You gave them a chance to be better. That's more mercy than most would have shown. An hour later, her parents arrived, looking small and afraid, so different from the figures of Ilara's childhood. Her mother's scent was honeysuckle and regret, her father's cedar and shame. You bound my power, Ilara said without preamble. Tell me why. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. You were 6 months old when the pack healer saw the marks on your skin, the moon goddess's symbols. She told us you would grow to be more powerful than any alpha, that you were marked as the Matriarch reborn. And we, her voice broke. We were terrified, Ilara. We were nobody. Common wolves with no status. We thought if you presented as Omega, if we bound your power, we could protect you from the politics and violence that kind of power attracts. We thought we were saving you. You were protecting yourselves, Ilara said, but there was no heat in it, only tired understanding. You were afraid of what it would mean to be my parents, the responsibility, the danger. Yes, her father's confession was raw. We were cowards. We told ourselves it was for you, but it was for us. We wanted a quiet life, and you were destined for storms. So we tried to make you small. We're sorry, Ilara. We're so sorry. Ilara looked at them, these wolves who'd raised her, who'd bound her power, but also kept her safe for 22 years, who'd made a terrible choice from a place of fear. And she felt the anger inside her shifting into something more complex. Not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps, eventually, understanding. "I don't know if I can forgive you," she said honestly, "but I won't punish you either. You'll go back to the Silver Moon Pack. You'll live your quiet life. And maybe someday, when I've figured out what it means to be the matriarch, we can talk again. But not now. Not yet." Her mother nodded, tears streaming. "That's more than we deserve. Thank you." They left, and Alara stood watching them go, feeling something in her chest finally settle. She turned to find Thorn waiting, patient as mountains. "Ready to go home?" he asked. Home, the valley, her unchained, her chosen family, her new purpose. "Yes," Alara said, taking his hand. "Let's go home." 3 months later, the valley had transformed. Word had spread of the matriarch's rising. Wolves had come. Omegas fleeing abuse, betas seeking purpose, even a few alphas disgusted by their pack's cruelty. Alara had accepted them all, building a community based on the revolutionary idea that every wolf had value regardless of rank. She ruled from a great hall built from ancient stone, with Thorn as her mate and partner, the Unchained as her counsel. She mediated disputes, set new laws, and trained young wolves in both combat and compassion. The moon goddess's marks shone permanent on her skin now, visible proof of her purpose. Darius had kept his word. The Silver Moon Pack had reformed under her watchful eye, Omega protections enshrined in pack law. He came monthly to report, always alone, always humble. Alara still felt the ghost of their broken bond sometimes, but it was distant now, less than a memory. Tonight, she stood on the valley rim under the full moon, Thorn beside her. The Unchained were scattered throughout the growing settlement below, teaching, training, protecting. "Do you ever miss it?" Thorn asked. "Your old life?" "Never." Alara leaned into his warmth. That life was small and safe. This one is vast and dangerous and mine. "Good answer." He kissed her temple. "Though I should warn you, Sage saw portents in the stars last night. A blood moon is coming in 6 months. Ancient texts say it heralds the return of something old and dark. Something we thought was defeated centuries ago. Well," Alara smiled, fierce and ready. "Let it come. I have my Unchained. I have my pack, and I am the matriarch. I was forged in rejection and raised from death. Whatever darkness is coming, we'll face it together." Her howl rose into the night, answered by 10 unchained voices and dozens more from the wolves below. The sound echoed across the territory, a declaration and a promise. The matriarch had risen. The old order was broken, and a new era had begun. And so Alara's journey transformed from tragedy to triumph. She was no longer the discarded Omega, the rejected mate, the powerless wolf cowering in shadows. She was the matriarch, storm and mercy, fury and grace, precisely as the prophecy had foretold. She'd learned that true strength isn't about dominance, but about lifting others. That family isn't always blood, but the souls who stand with you when the world tries to break you. That rejection can be the beginning of revolution. She'd been cast out, left to die, but she'd risen from the ashes of that old life as something magnificent. And though challenges awaited, the blood moon, ancient evils, the constant work of maintaining justice in an unjust world, she would face them all with her Unchained beside her, with Thorn's hand in hers, with the power of the moon goddess singing in her veins. What did you think of Alara's transformation? Would you have shown mercy to Darius and her parents? Could you forgive those who tried to destroy you? Or would vengeance be sweeter? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of rejection turned to power, of found family and chosen destiny, please hit that like button and share this with fellow werewolf romance fans. Subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss the next chapter. Because this is only the beginning. The blood moon is coming, and with it, ancient enemies who remember the first matriarch. Ilara's greatest test is still ahead. Thank you for listening to Ilara's story. She rose from the ashes. She claimed her destiny. And she's only getting started. We'll see you in the next chapter.